welcome to Paperback Flicks.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Paperback Flicks. I am Ruth Craddock. I am here with my lovely guest,
Ray Davidson?
and we're talking about The Little Prince, the book slash the Netflix film that came out, I want to say 2015.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we will fix it. And yeah, so I picked this, so I kind of want to ask you, had you heard of the book or seen the movie?
So I had heard of the book, but the family that neighbors of ours, friends of ours, they are French and they had the book. That was something that they read to their kids or whatever
Mm-hmm.
in French. And so she had talked about it, saying like, "Oh, it has so many touching like life lessons or whatever." But I don't know, it was a French book, so I didn't think about it. And then when you mentioned it for this, I was like, hey! But then I had to find it in English because I was not about to learn French in order to read the book.
And it has been translated into other languages, so.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So what was how do you feel about the book?
For I know there's several different translations, and the one that I found that I read was kind of difficult. Like they kind of translated things literally sometimes
Hmm.
instead of the message or the meaning.
Okay.
Like when we say like, oh, try to catch two birds with one stone, and you translate that into another language, they're like, what? You know.
Yeah, okay.
So there are some things that I recognized that they didn't make sense. However, in French it probably did.
Yes. Yeah.
So that pulled me out a little. But as far as just a children's book and a sweet story and the messages, especially like the fox when he makes the present of a secret, like those little things, nothing was lost in translation there. That was still really
Hmm.
sweet and touching.
Okay. This was my first time reading the book. So I actually saw the movie first, I think when it came out, and we were still living in New York when it came out. And I had never heard of the book until like after we had watched it and I was telling a friend about it and she's like, "Oh, that's my favorite book." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know it was a book." So I was actually really curious about what would actually be in the book and what wasn't in the book that the Netflix movie has. And this pure animated movie, and it's kind of a curious movie in itself, and the book itself is kind of curious too. It's like has an interesting way of starting, where it's just this guy talking about his first drawings, and you're
Right.
like, okay. And then next thing you know, he's grown up, and you're like, okay. And the next thing you know, he's crashed in the desert, and you're like, okay. And the next thing you know, a little prince just shows up out of nowhere in the middle of the desert and requests that he draw him a sheep. And because nobody liked his original drawings back when he was a kid, he never tried to draw ever again, which is wow, chill kid. Um, man, if I let every time somebody told me they didn't like what I did stop me, I wouldn't do anything. But
Which that's what I thought when I read that. I was like, really? Because when I was a little kid and somebody was like, Mer, that was no good, I'd be like, I don't care, I'm eight. Like,
yeah, first off, those adults in his life suck. Secondly, um, maybe because the adults in his life sucked and didn't teach him to believe in himself, when they didn't believe in him, he didn't bother believing in himself either. But
right.
apparently he believed in himself enough to become a pilot, so I don't know. Anyways, um, so there's that. And then Little Prince shows up and asks him to draw him a sheep. And so like he draws some decent looking sheep actually for somebody who doesn't know how to draw. So like some people just think they can't do something until you make them do it. And they're like, oh, well, I can do this. Okay. Some people just don't bother to find out. And then when the kid, the little prince, who comes from another planet apparently, um, keeps having like notes and like, no, 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 that's not right. The pilot gets kind of frustrated and just draws a box and says, the sheep you've asked for is inside this box. And the kid's like, that's perfect. That's exactly what I asked for. And they're like, okay, this is a curious little fellow. Um, So first off, you're like, okay, so am I supposed to take any of this literally? Or is this his whole fun little hallucinations he had in the desert while he was fixing his plane.
Right.
So apparently he lived, he fixed the plane, he went on to grow up to be an old man, so he didn't die in the desert. Or maybe the whole thing didn't happen. Maybe he never crashed in the first place. And it's just a fun story he made up, but he couldn't get anybody to listen to it. Or it comforts him in his, when he feels sad or something. But I choose to think that he really did crash in the desert. And as part of his delirium from being in the heat and without water for a long period of time and stressed out about possibly dying there unless he fixed his plane, he invented the Little Prince so he wouldn't feel so alone and so he could distract his mind from the danger at hand and to help him deal with everything. But then when he fixed his plane, he then had to have a reason why the Little Prince couldn't come with him. And so
Uh,
he invented the snake.
right.
So that's one interpretation is that it's just his crazy mirage,
Hmm.
fever dream that he had while he was stuck in the desert. And if so, it's, a delightful little fever dream. There's some really great lessons learned in there. Mainly, it's talking about how, you know, being an adult isn't the problem, it's forgetting.
Hmm.
That's the problem. Forgetting about the wonder of childhood, forgetting about the inquisitiveness,
Right.
forgetting to have fun, to not or take things too seriously, to leave space and time for the little things. And
Yep.
so it's like it's not that being an adult's a bad thing. Being an adult can be great, but if you forget to find the joy in life, then it's a bad thing. And
Yep.
that's what he equates of being an adult. Apparently, little kids all have joy.
Right.
That's not necessarily true. I've known plenty of unhappy little kids, and some kids are just sad. But like generally speaking, most children are pretty happy. So,
Yeah. Well,
anyways,
I kind of like in the same way that like the little prince just accepts that the box has whatever kind of sheep he needed. Like,
uh-huh.
you know what I mean? Like I kind of feel like that's the same with the whole story of the little prince that he's telling within the story, is that whether the prince is real or not, or whether he really had this tiny planet and that made no sense to us or not,
Mm-hmm.
kind of isn't the point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
the point is, what do you gain? Like
What he gained from his experience, whether it was real or
yeah,
not.
what value comes of it? It is as much or as little as you want to make it. If you want to make that sheep in the box perfect, then it's perfect. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to take away what you learned, or like you said, if this is just his own hallucination, this is his mind's way of working it out. The things that he, like I mentioned, the fox making the present of a secret, and not, not to forget the joy, or the,
Yeah.
the value of, because he
The things that
loved
truly
this
matter
rose,
are
you
invisible.
know.
We
Yeah,
can't
you have
see.
the
Yeah.
roses, and how he loved this rose, and then he was like, "Oh, she's just an ordinary rose. Like, she's not even special. Look, there's hundreds of roses, right?"
Uh-huh.
And the fox is like, "But she is special. There's hundreds of boys. There's hundreds of foxes. We're special to each other." And that same concept, like, however it was that the pilot came to understand that, whether it was actually an alien or a hallucination, or just
Hmm.
his mind's way of working out,
Some of his
like,
own issues.
here I am in the
That's a
middle of the
story he wrote.
desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if I was stuck in the middle of the desert, and I'd be like, well, what do I value? Like, where does my,
Hmm.
what is it that I want to go home to? Because he didn't have wife and family or whatever. Like, he grew up and he was all by himself, and he was a pilot. Like, and that was it. Like, that was kind of his whole life.
And the pilot's a pretty lonely job because you're flying all the time. So
Right.
that is difficult to have a family in
Yeah.
that lifestyle.
And so what's your conviction? And he's sitting there like working it out, and kind of the concept that love and faith are enough in and of themselves
To go
to
on
keep
living.
going for. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that's kind of his ultimate, like, what he learns, however it is that he learns it. Or in the case of it being a hallucination, what he already knew but needed to understand for himself.
Yeah. Something that the situation brought out of his subconscious to the forefront to help him find the will to keep
Hmm.
going and to not give up and they get home.
Yep.
So, like either way, it's fun whether he got inspired to write the story from his experience in the desert, or he just got inspired to write the story and he never crashed in the desert, or he did crash in the desert and had this whole wonderful hallucination. It doesn't really matter. The point is what he gained from it, like you're saying. So it ultimately doesn't matter if he existed or not. But so it's talking about the little prince himself. So his whole story is that he's from this tiny planet that's so small that like there's somehow room for volcanoes, but they're
But
apparently
they
tiny
were,
volcanoes.
yeah, they're
No,
just
like
little volcanoes.
anthills. And like he's very small, but like he has to worry about the the
Boababs, yeah.
boababs, and like these like weedy like trees that would take over his whole planet. And so he has to constantly be like digging them up and getting rid of them. And then suddenly this different sprout comes up and it's like, well, that's not a baobab. And then it turns into a rose. And he's like, oh, she's so pretty, so beautiful. And apparently, this rose is sentient and can talk. And it's like, oh, thank you. I'm so pretty. Oh, thank you. Oh, I need this and I need that. And then she realizes she has an audience of, somebody who wants to take care of her because he's already established that he takes care of his planet. He's the sole occupant and he's willing to do all this work to keep it from getting overgrown from the baobabs. So he's very attentive to her. And now she's his like one and only companion. But then even loneliness and having a companion can eventually lose its like shine if the other person starts to take you for granted or there starts to be tension and you don't know how to handle it or deal with it. And like in this case, they're like they were in love, but they'd never been in love before and they didn't know how to be in love.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't know if the mains love and like they really cared about each other or if they mean a romantic love. It doesn't really
Right.
matter either way.
So from what I understand from the French, I believe it was originally written in French. At least that was the translation that
I believe it is a French book.
yeah. And and it was not love like romantic love, but it was like love like I like cherishing
Affection.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Affection.
Like a brother or a mother and child or like that kind of like
Hmm. Because
a
there are
close
lots of
bond
different
love.
types of love. There
Right.
aren't just romantic love, and
Right.
platonic love is just as important, if not more important in some ways, than romantic love,
Right.
especially in certain parts of your life. And so yeah, having nobody else around, and then suddenly there's this Rose here, but he has to take care of her because she's literally dependent upon him. She can't get her own water. It has to rain from the sky, or I don't know where he gets his water. I didn't see any water on
Yeah.
the drawings of the planet or
And
in the film version.
And you kind of get the impression, at least I kind of got the impression that he's almost like a spirit or what we would consider like an angel type creature, like because he
Hmm.
doesn't need to eat and he doesn't need to sleep.
Doesn't
But
seem to. And
yeah,
somehow
yeah,
there's
the
no atmosphere as far as we can tell of his planet or any of these planets
right.
that he goes to besides Earth.
When he's in the desert and they're like the guy's like, okay, well, I'm out of water and I know that you don't need to eat, but I do. And the kid and I think there's something about the kid gets tired and he does sleep, but it was like days and days and days or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And when he does, he says, oh well, I don't need water, but it would still be really nice, you know, when they go to find the well or whatever.
Like, yeah, let's go
And
get water.
so
It's more
yeah,
about
like
finding it for the pilot than, I mean, not that he ever comes out and says, I don't need water really, or I don't need food, or I don't need sleep. He just doesn't seem to be impacted or affected by these things the
yeah.
way the pilot is.
Yeah. And the pilot mentions that. He's like, "Well,
Yeah.
maybe you don't need to eat, but I do." You know, like
Yeah.
but
And
yeah,
it's possible.
the going to find a well, it was almost like a blessing, like a, you know, you've cared for me and here's a blessing that I can take
I
you
can
to
help
this
you find this
well,
well.
you know.
Yeah.
But which why didn't you tell him about the well 3 days ago or whatever? But he
Well,
didn't
maybe
because he didn't
because
think of it, you know.
I don't know, he wasn't desperate enough yet, or who knows.
Yeah, he
Um,
traveled the world over. Like in a year, he had traveled around the whole world. So,
yeah, he probably already knew about it. Maybe he just didn't think it was pertinent because he
right.
seems to have, the Little Prince himself seems to have a very interesting notion of what's important and what's not and what's pertinent. And like one thing they say in the book is that once he asks a question, he doesn't let it go. You have to answer that question. You cannot ignore his questions, which is, a very childlike attribute. There are plenty of
And
kids that are like, oh, but why? But why? But why?
he doesn't answer questions
But
unless
he
it
doesn't ask
happens to
questions.
be the thing that he wants to say anyway. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't directly answer a question because it's asked.
Yeah. So he's a curious little fellow. Um, anyway, so we go back to he's on his planet, and him and the Rose love each other, but they start to kind of rub each other the wrong way and try to drive each other crazy. And so, like, his way of trying to deal with it, he runs away by, roping a flock of birds that somehow fly in space. And, he takes a tour of the planets, or the asteroids, I should say. He's not
Mhm.
actually on a planet, it's an asteroid. And, he goes to these other asteroids, and they all happen to have just one occupant, too. And it's like, huh, interesting. All these planets have one person living there. And how they came to be there, nobody knows, because in normal circumstances, one needs a father and a mother to exist.
Yeah.
But that is not important. That is not here or there in this universe. So they're just these random people that just live there. And there was the king who was, oh, I'm ruler of everything. It's like, well, what are you ruler of? There's like literally nothing here. You're the only person here. It's like, oh, I can command the sun, the sky, and like the whole universe. And he's like, okay, then tell it to, to set. I want to see a sunset. And he's like, oh, it will when conditions are favorable. So to try to hide the fact that he literally has no control.
Right.
And then even when the kid does leave, he's like, you're an explorer. You can go and see the other planets for me. So I command you to go. And the kid was leaving anyways.
Hmm.
So it's one of those people that some people, ironically, seem always act like they know everything. But then a lot of times they will only manage to tell you that they knew that after it's been confirmed.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, okay, so I don't know if I can really believe anything you say. Like, my husband telling me that he knew we were going to have three sons after our third son. We found out we were having our third son. He's like, oh, you never said this before. It's like, oh, no, I always knew. And then we ended up having four sons. And I was like, okay, what happened to the three sons thing? Anyways, that's just what he says. He says he had a strong impression of three sons growing up. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But you never told me this until after
Hmm.
our third son made his appearance. So interesting. But like, there's a lot of people, it's kind of like that. They won't admit something until they know for sure it's true, and then, or they'll change their answer to fit whatever is true so that they can save face and always seem like they know what's going on. They won't admit that they don't have control or they don't have actual power or that they don't know something.
Right.
And so that's this own kind of weird arrogance because like and ignorance at the same time. What are your thoughts about one, the whole romance with Rose? We kind of talked about that already. How do you feel about him like just leaving the Rose? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the way I kind of saw, like, not only his planet, but all these other, like, solitary planets is kind of, it's almost describing personalities, right? Like,
Hmm.
the vain person and the powerless king and all these different,
Hmm.
um,
This man.
that, like, when you, like, see somebody and you're like, oh, they're in their own little world, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
he was literally giving personality types, solitary personality types, the drinker and
Hmm.
and a child. Like, children do kind of live in their own world. Like,
Hmm.
what they consider important is like paramount, even though
Yeah.
the rest of the world doesn't care, like, and
Hmm.
so I kind of saw that almost analogy driven,
Hmm.
like kind of like when people talk about in the Bible, the book of Revelations, and they're like a seven-headed monster or whatever it is, like a, you know, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, all these things that are
Symbolic rather than literal.
symbolic. Yeah, it's imagery. How would someone 2,000 years ago describe vehicles,
Hmm.
chariots that move on their own or whatever? Like,
Yeah.
like that's the kind of thing that, like, how would you describe a child who literally, like, doesn't get the concept of other people live here, but he's a generally responsible child,
Hmm.
and how do you describe the a drinker who has an entire world around them, but they live in their own world, and all he can see is his sadness, and or
Hmm.
the vain man that he just needs his hat to salute. Oh yes,
Like, please
thank you.
admire me, but you're the only person on this planet. Yes, but could you admire me anyways? I'm
Right,
the handsomest and richest and best dressed, but you're the only
because
one.
his world is him, right? And
Yeah.
so I
Hmm.
kind of saw these all as analogies, which to me, it makes sense that like when I was a kid and I was super into the things I was into and like it 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 mattered to me like to the point of devastation if something were to go wrong, right?
Hmm.
And then there comes a point that I'm like, I'm not a kid. I'm not there's bigger and better things out there. And
You can let it
eventually
go.
I come back around to, oh, but you know what? There are some core tenets that I was starting to develop as in my childhood that actually I don't want to let go of,
Hmm.
right? Which is kind of what I saw with like he left his childhood behind,
Hmm.
but not like entirely. And like that's why he goes on this whole journey, like
Hmm.
we kind of do. Like we don't just wake up one day and we're like, "Oh, I'm 12, I'm grown," right? Like we
Yeah.
kind of have this years, maybe a decade of transition, which I
Hmm.
feel like is kind of him and he's seeing these adults because these are all men. These are all
Hmm.
adults and he's a
He's gonna
boy.
be an adult man someday.
Right. Looking at like, well, I don't want to be the guy who's so obsessed with having power that he claims power over that which he does not. I don't
Yeah.
want to
Hmm.
be vain. I don't want to regret myself so much that that I
Can't
drink
do
myself
anything with
into a
my life.
stupor. I
Yeah.
don't really even want to just do my job and I'm just a cog in a machine and I just
And don't
light
even know
a
why you're doing your job. Just
yeah.
to own the stars. To own the stars, but why?
Yeah,
Be
yeah, the
richer.
businessman and also the lamp post, the lamp lighter. Like
Hmm.
he lights the lamp and then he has to douse the lamp and then he
Hmm.
has to light the lamp and he's like, "Oh, I'm just so tired." Okay, then
It's
stop.
like,
Like,
you're the only person that sees the light. If you
yeah,
want to take a nap, take a nap. And then
right,
you can put the light back on when you wake up. You don't
right,
have to. There's no one else you're lighting the lamp for. It's literally sometimes we create the problems in our heads. We
right,
create the issue, create the crisis
right,
because we see a problem that isn't there and we're so unwilling to just see the simplicity of the moment and what's going on and say, hey, but do you have to worry about this? Is it really that important? Or then it's just important in your head,
right.
you
Yeah.
know?
And so then when he goes to Earth and there's a plethora of different people and creatures and roses and whatever,
Hmm.
and he experiences all different things. He experiences different landscape. Oh, the cartographer, that's the one that I didn't mention earlier. The
Hmm.
one that just makes the maps or the geographer or whatever he calls
Oh yeah,
himself.
I mixed that one up with the king. Yeah, so the geographer's like, I need you to go and
Right, yeah. Go and explore. Oh, I don't
oh,
explore. I
I don't
just,
explore, I just mark it
you
up. And
know.
it's like, okay,
Yeah. And
wouldn't it
so
be
he's
simpler if you went and did the exploring too? You could do
right.
both.
But yeah, so I kind of I saw those all as kind of analogies of different like when you have forgotten what you value,
Hmm.
you start to value lesser things. You start to value the praise. You start to value the your own knowledge to the point that you don't actually experience, right? Like
Hmm.
all of these things had like a loss of purpose, a loss of
Yeah.
value.
Yeah. And then other things like the fox, it was about finding a purpose. The fox was perfectly fine. He's like, I have no need of you, and you have no need of me. But if you should tame me, then we will matter to each other, and
Mhm.
then we will be unique to one another. And so, in the book, like maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but he asks him to tame him.
Yeah,
He wants to be tamed.
yeah,
And so they play together and they become friends and they start to matter to each other. And
yep,
that's around the same time that the little prince discovers that this world has plenty of roses and his rose isn't special at all, where he thought it was the only one because she said she was the only one in the universe. As far as she knew, she was.
Right.
And, because she doesn't even know where she came from. So, I mean, that's maybe partially vanity on her part and partially because she doesn't know. As far as she knows, she might be the only one. But
Right.
like, and then, but the fox being able to say, hey, but she's unique to you because she's your rose. These aren't your roses. And
Right.
I'm unique to you because I'm your fox. And you're unique to me because, the time you put into taming me is what gives me value, is what makes it, like, gives this relationship worth. And what's funny is I was reading this, my husband, he has a saying when I read physical books. So I read it as a physical book because I already owned it. I bought it. Actually, ironically, I should have bought it at the same time I bought Little Princess, the physical book. So it's funny, I was thinking of those two books as possibilities, not just because their names are similar, but because I literally bought them at the same time. And when I found them in my cupboard, they were right next to each other. So I was like, huh, that's right, I did buy them at the same time. Anyways, one of the things I love about audiobooks is I can do it in places where my husband's not around while I'm doing other things, and I can just listen to it and do stuff. But when I'm reading a physical book, I have to do that at home. I can't do that at work. And then my husband sees with his eyeballs that I am reading a book. I am doing something. It doesn't involve him, which then means he needs to mess with me, or he needs to ask me questions, or he needs to come over suddenly and start kissing on my neck, or like lay his head on my stomach and be like, oh, hi. Or like he needs to suddenly get my attention because I wasn't paying attention to him. And he knows how much I hate when he does this. I mean, it's adorable, but annoying at the same time. It's like I'm trying to read a book. So since he was sitting there, like right, essentially right on top of me, just laying on me while I was reading, I kept like turning to him and going, "Did you know that the most important things are invisible? Did you know the time I took to tame you is what makes you important?" Or things like that. I kept saying stuff like that to him. He's like, "Oh, okay, okay." My little bees of wisdom out of the book to sort of, well, that's what you get for laying on me or being open my space while I read this book. You're gonna get random stuff.
Yeah, for me, like I said, the fox is it's my favorite part. Like I love that. Um, but then I kind of like I always want to go back to like whether there was really a boy and really a fox and whatever, like all of
Hmm.
that was kind of just to one way or another, it teaches the man, right? The pilot, the narrator. And
Hmm.
like for me, at least, especially when I was reading the book, it always came back to like why is he telling us what he's telling us? Like why did he just feel like he had to get the story out and he,
Hmm.
and it's kind of his for lack of a better word, like his testimony or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
like this
his
is last will and testament, but not like that. This is like his record of
yeah,
his
his legacy.
philosophy or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is his legacy. And I kind of
Mhm.
feel like what a great legacy. Like we talk about like journaling and that kind of thing. And I'm not a good journaler because I don't care about my day to day. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But when I have these like touching, like real life-changing experiences, or I have that realization of something that I kind of already knew, but
Just got
it
affirmed.
yeah, it came to light. I realized the something that I already knew, like my heart already knew it, or the back of my head already knew it, but it like came to fruition, or it suddenly
Hmm.
mattered to me. Like those things I do like to write down. I like to have those so that when I'm gone, or even just when I'm old, you know what I mean? I have
Yeah,
forgotten again because that does happen. We do forget things.
I know I
And
do.
yeah, so I thought about when I was in the hospital with my oldest daughter,
Hmm.
um, and somebody was like, "Oh, do you journal?" Because I was so bored. I was on bed rest in the hospital, not allowed to
Hmm.
leave my bed for the entire month of October.
Yeah.
And man, I was going like legit insane. Like they had like a social worker come by 4 times a week to check on me. Like it was a
Oh
thing.
gosh. And that's a
And
fun month to miss
oh,
actually getting to do things.
I I like October, but it's
Yeah.
fine. It was fine.
You made it through.
But in that time, I think Scott had just brought me a notebook just because, like, I am the kind of person that I like having notebooks, and maybe
Oh
I
yeah.
think story idea and or whatever things I want to write down. But I didn't necessarily need that. I had like a notepad that I might write questions down or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this notebook, um, the day she was born, I thought I'm gonna write because that's a bit of
A
a traumatic
special.
story itself, right?
Yeah.
And so I was writing that down, but I did it for some reason in like a letter format, like I was writing my letter to my baby or whatever.
Oh, cute.
And so I just started doing that every day. And even though some of my letters are like this big, and
Mm-hmm.
other of my letters will take up several pages, but I wrote Bethany a letter every day until I finished that notebook. And then when she was older, she's like a teenager or something, and I gave it to her and I was like, "So this might seem weird and it might seem stupid or whatever, but," and she still has like she keeps that with not with her, but like it's in
You
her
have it.
room, it's in a place where she can see it, even if she doesn't go through and read it all the time, you know?
Yeah, it might be me mortar than she realizes or you realize or
Right.
or maybe it's just sweet knowing that you did that. Even if she never read it, just knowing that you wrote all those letters to her is,
Right.
is sweet. Yeah.
And yeah, and I feel like this is kind of that same thing. Like he doesn't have kids necessarily. He doesn't like he mentions briefly that he didn't have anyone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And but what does he give to the world? He gives this. And he gives it to you in kind of a child's way of you just believe. It doesn't matter where the boy came from
Mm-hmm.
until you know why it matters, you know, and
Yeah.
the that's kind of the you just he can talk to snakes and foxes and roses just
Mm-hmm.
because just
Everything talks to this
yeah.
kid. I mean, that's pretty cool power.
Yeah. So I there was a lot about it that I liked. I feel like I probably am missing some because of the poor translation,
Mm-hmm.
but that was partially on me because I didn't look to see if there was anything any better. I was just like, man, I'll get
Mm.
it.
I don't know how good or bad the translation of my particular copy I have is, but I felt like it made sense. I don't feel like it didn't. Well, at the same time, the story itself has kind of a dissonance, like
Yeah.
an oddity about it. It's
Yeah.
asymmetrical, and not everything's supposed to make sense. So maybe the things that didn't make sense are supposed not to make sense.
Yeah, it just kind of pulls you out a little bit. And like I said, there would be just phrases that, or even like, I forget how the literal translation of like the word 20, I think. The French, what you say in French to say 20
Mm-hmm.
is something like, I forget what it is, but it's almost like a math problem in itself, or whatever. I don't know, maybe it's not 20, maybe it's 40, but it was something that was like, why? Why did I just say I needed four tens or whatever it was, like whatever the number
Yeah,
was. And
yeah.
so there was a couple of things like that that they were translated directly instead of
Like,
what its meaning was being
yeah,
translated.
instead of like logically or instinctively.
Yeah.
Just like,
So
yeah.
it's fine. I was fine with it, but it's not the kind of thing that I wouldn't read that version to my kids or to little kids because
Hmm.
I would have to spend too much time reading ahead and making sure that this made sense and how do I say that and
Hmm.
you know.
Well,
So
like the way the story begins and the way it is in itself, just the book, I wouldn't automatically think of this as a kid's book because it doesn't feel like a kid's book. Like
right,
ultimately it is, but it also isn't. So like I think that's why people like it is that like people like my friend back in New York who said it was her favorite book because it's not necessarily just written for a child. It's written for maybe the child in all of us,
right.
but it's written for, people that can look deeper into a deeper meaning. But it's also written for people that can see the simpler things and like simplify things, like the prince. Like the prince has an interesting way of seeing things. In some ways, he sees it in like a very like overreaching, very broad view kind of way. In other ways, he sees it very narrowly.
Right.
You know, he's talking about the people going on the train, but like, where are they going? Oh, they're back already? And like, no, those are different people. Oh, where are they going? Like,
Right.
what are they finding? And because he doesn't understand the concept of going someplace to do something and then having to come back because his planet is so small, he can just move his chair and see another sunset. Like, it's not, there's no concept of travel, and all these things that we do don't make sense to him.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting in itself because I think in a lot of ways that's what childhood is like. Being a child, you don't understand a lot of what parents do or adults do. And you're just watching them going, I don't understand what in the world they're doing, why they're doing it. And that's part of what's kind of funny about reading it. It talks about, if you try to tell the story to an adult, they won't understand. Just give them some numbers. They love numbers. And then they'll sit there and they'll count their numbers and they'll be happy. Give them a math equation and they'll be glad. Like it's sort of just like parents are too dumb to, not too dumb, adults are too worried about specifics to get the broader meaning or something, what he's trying to say, I guess. But
Yeah.
anyways, so as a book, it's so the thing to I want to discuss about the book is because it's when I saw the movie first, I was like, okay, how much of this is actually in the book? What's in the book is just what the pilot wrote. His
Hmm.
story, that is all that's in the book. Now, in
Right.
so sometimes when you have to take a children's book or a very short story and turn it into a movie, you kind of have to have more, you have to add more to sort of make it long enough to be a film. Because
Hmm.
even like an hour and a half film, that's 90 minutes, you have to add more because there's not enough story here. Even if you like drag it out for just the book to be the movie. So they invented this girl. Did we ever learn her name? I
I
forgot her
feel
name.
like we had to know her name, but I can't think of it now.
I can't think of it, honestly. I don't know if we ever knew the pilot or the girl or the mom's name.
I feel like the pilot or the aviator, he was always just called the
Maybe.
aviator or the neighbor or whatever.
Yeah.
The girl had a name. I don't know why. I
I'm
don't
not
know
sure
why I
anymore.
can't think of
We'll
it.
have to figure it out and then we'll inform you in the
Right.
spaces above or below. Um, But, we have this girl who's her mom is raising her to get into this school. It's like supposed to be the best school, and then she messes up her interview, her entrance interview, whatever, and now they have to come up with plan B, and so then she has to study all summer long. They move into this house right next to the pilot because he has this weird old rickety house. Nobody wants to live in that house next door to him. Plus, he's a crazy old man and apparently has a plane in his backyard and he does weird stuff. So no one wants to live there. So they're able to get this house, which is in the neighborhood of the school. So they have to admit her because she's in the neighborhood instead of admitting her just because she got accepted or whatever.
Hmm.
But she still has to work her butt off, the little girl, to get the grades to stay in the school and do well. And so essentially, the impression you get from the little girl is that she's a mini adult already. And because her mom, who's a single mom, they don't fully explain what happened to the dad. We know the dad's out there somewhere, and he sends the daughter these little snow globes of cities,
Hmm.
which is, seems fine at first, but then when you like realize like what a cold thing to send, it's not like a cute nature scene. It's like cute characters doing something in a snow globe. It's a
Right.
city. It's just a boring stone thing with no feelings or emotions. That's what
Right.
he's sending her.
Well, and a lot of them look the same or similar,
Yeah.
but there are some different cities, and it almost
Mhm.
feels like, hey, every time I go to a new city, I'll get you the snow globe. But so why is every other city more important than being with me? Is kind of what I
Yeah, I
like.
can see that too. That's
A
like
parent's
what's so
divorced, but
significant
like,
about these cities that our city doesn't have? Because I'm
yeah.
here.
Well, and I don't know. I assumed it was divorce. It felt like
Mhm.
this was a divorce situation or a weren't married situation.
Yeah,
And
but he's not in they're not, he doesn't have a relationship with them. He's
right.
not there on a regular basis, and the
I
mom's
was
essentially doing this by herself. Yeah.
right. I was gonna say I know many divorced couples or the children of divorced parents that have both mother and father in some degree, like,
Yeah, they see
you
him on
know,
a regular basis. Yeah.
And then I also know some that are unfortunately more like this, that one or the other parent just doesn't just doesn't show up and they send you a
Kind of
Christmas
estranged, yeah.
gift or whatever, and you're like, okay, why? Just to remind me that every other thing is more important than me? Thanks.
Yeah.
You
He's
know,
probably
like,
thinking, oh, she'll like this. It's snow globes are cool. Kids like snow globes. But like instead of getting something that maybe would have been personal to her, even if it was like there's nothing wrong with snow globes. Maybe she
right,
loves snow globes. But like the fact that he didn't pick something that like was something that she liked, or maybe he doesn't even know what she likes. But then it
right,
seems like maybe she doesn't know what she likes because
right.
she's been like so one of the things I found interesting about this story is again, you know me, and I like to identify with things. I always find some way to identify with all the characters, or not
Mhm.
with all the characters, but somebody. But I identified with the girl because, because the mom is dealing with her emotional baggage. Inadvertently, she is dumping those issues that come with it onto the daughter. That, like, yes, the mother's not doing anything on purpose to damage her daughter, but because of her, like, hyper obsession with being, you know, adult and dealing with things in an adult logical fashion so that she can protect herself from the pain of things that have happened to her, she's making it so her daughter doesn't learn how to emotionally process things. And her
Hmm.
daughter isn't getting to have a childhood.
Right.
Her daughter is just doing what needs to be done to get things done, but she's not actually learning about herself. She's not exploring who she is. She doesn't know who she is because she's just clinical and she does what needs to be done and she's very serious, which is not healthy for a child. And
Well,
it's not really even healthy for an adult.
right. When the mom brings out that board, and it's
Oh
not like a
gosh.
vision board, and it's not like something that they went through together.
Oh
Like
yeah.
the mom is just like, I've done this. I've got every minute of every day for the next year and a half, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and
And
that board's amazing
I was
in like
like,
the most messed up way.
right. Well, and the thing is if the mom wanted that, if the mom was like, I'm gonna get my life on track and I'm gonna do this thing and I'm gonna move the magnet over every day, like,
Like, or maybe it's
cool.
something we can do together.
And if you're like, hey, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna work this out together and whatever, cool. So parents have stewardship over their children's
Hmm.
development. So to a degree, we have to. We have to be like, dude, take a shower. We have to be like, okay, you're gonna have this time set aside for homework every day or whatever.
Hmm.
Like, we just have to do that with some kids more than with others.
Yeah.
But you don't get to choose who your child is. And you don't,
You have to choose your parents.
what's that?
You don't get to choose your parents either.
Right. They don't choose who their parents.
There's some cosmic reason why you end up with who you are.
Well, and if I decide, like, okay, ready, little anecdote that kind of goes right along with this. So I am working now, which for a long time I was not, and now I'm gone back to work, and so I drop off my kids at school, and I go out to work, and I leave work just in time to go pick them up from school. And
Hmm.
so when I am sitting there in the pickup line and I'm like, let's go, let's go. And it's been like not even 10 minutes and I can see them across the courtyard and I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
and they're like, I was just talking to my friends. I'm like, okay, you have all day to talk to your friends. And they're like, no, I don't. I'm in school. And I'm like, I understand. First of all, their school is much more academically driven than my school days were.
Yeah, you,
I
yeah.
talk to my friends all the time in school. So it kind of like just she's not the same as the mom from Miracle on 34th Street,
Yeah.
but there is a lot of that same kind of like you were saying, like her emotional baggage and the fact that she's not processing it again involving divorce or you know
Her relationship issues. Yeah.
yeah, like it's and her desire to plunge into work or whatever, and the way that it's affecting her daughter, it kind of feels like we don't mean to grab a hold of that, but there is something to that. There's something that we need to be reminded that, I look at I've got four daughters and I look at each of them and I want to be like, okay, you need to be a little bit more like this in this direction, and you need to pull back a little here. But I don't get to, I mean, I can
You can make suggestions,
help.
but yeah.
Yeah, I can help, I can try, I can put it out there, whatever. But I I have done when my kids were younger, we have six glass squares that we use as whiteboards.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have like their home the different like Bethany was in seventh or eighth grade, and so I would have all of her different classes lined up and what homework was in those classes,
Mm-hmm.
and also their chores or anything that I needed to make sure that they remembered. We're going to grandma's house on Thursday, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because I was like dictating their every moment. However, it was all of the like Bethany needed that help. She needed someone to remind her, okay, you were in history class today. Do you have history homework?
Yeah.
And she needed that. Megan didn't need that. She had her own system. She was doing
Mm-hmm.
fine. She's in all of these like dual enrollment and accelerated classes and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of getting in her way. Like when I was like, okay, so Megan, we need to sit down. We need to go over your schedule. And she's like, Mom, I'm trying to do my homework. I'm like, oh, right.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Sorry.
right. The way that she processes things is different, and she's got a handle on that.
Mm-hmm.
However, in other areas, she still needed mom because
Yeah.
she's a kid.
Maybe
And
she's, not taking enough time for herself outside of her
right.
schedule. Maybe she's too focused, which
Right.
I think we all have weaknesses and we need to find the balance. And I think that's ultimately what they're really saying in the story is finding the balance. It's not
Right.
that it's wrong to be responsible or to be motivated or driven. And it's
Right.
not wrong to be childish and have, be whimsical and into make believe. But when you give too much into one, you lose the balance and you lose sight of
Yeah.
what's important either way.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I started to just kind of over time, I started to just develop the kind of the not the theory, but like, so family first. Our family comes first. And if
Hmm.
there's, oh, mom, I'm not going to get perfect attendance. You know what? It's your grandmother's funeral. We're going.
Yeah.
Family first. I don't care about perfect attendance. And I understand that was important to you. And I understand why that might be important to you.
Hmm.
Just because it wasn't important to me doesn't mean
Not
that I
important. Just in this
disregard it.
moment, it's not important.
Yeah, there's good, better, best. And right now, the most important thing is family. However,
Hmm.
that does not mean that every time my kid wants me, I'm going to leave work,
Yeah.
you know? And
Hmm.
so, yeah, we've kind of had to like reel in that when Megan gets out of control with her schedule or whatever, and we have to be like, you come to the family thing. You go to the church activity or whatever.
Hmm.
Like we
You
have to start
take a
priority.
breath, you
Yeah.
go to sleep, you
Yeah.
eat food. It's
You
okay not
take
to
a
schedule every
shower.
moment of your day. Yeah.
Right. So we actually, for a while, we were scheduling showers. There are two showers in this house.
Good.
And I was like, there's two showers and six people, and
We can
all
make this
of
work.
you need to take showers. They're all like 12 and older. But yeah, well, and that was kind of cracking me up when like the girl has like her set workout time and whatever.
Hmm. Oh,
And
yeah.
I
And the
was
mom's
like,
like, you made a friend? Oh, okay. Well, let's see. No, no, no. Oh, okay. Uh, you can on Thursday next year, this
right.
day between the 1:30 and 2, you can play with your friend. And it was
Yeah,
like, whoa, mom. Whoa. There's one thing about being organized and being on top of things. There's another thing when like she literally doesn't have any time to have a friend till next
right.
year
Right.
for a half an hour. A half an hour. That's like, whoa, mom, you need to get a handle on things.
Right. Yeah.
And she didn't
Priorities.
even ask her about the friend. Didn't ask her any specifics. She didn't care to know because that wasn't important. It was important
Yeah.
that her daughter stayed on task and she stayed with the plan.
Yeah.
She should have been like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you made a new friend? Oh, tell me more about her and everything." But no, if she
Well,
had, then she would have found out that it was the old dude next door. And then she could have been like, "Okay, hold on a second. What's going on?"
yeah. Well,
So
and
we
it
kind of
breeds,
skipped forward to like the control freak mom and the daughter that's becoming control freak because that's how her mom raised her. And then, because of a crazy thing with the pilot and him starting his plane because he's still
Mhm.
trying to start his plane, and the freaking propeller busting through the fence into her house and magically not hurting her. That could have killed her, dude.
Right.
Messed up her house, and then, the pilot has to go in and bring the propeller back, and then, the girl's like, and the electricity goes out, and she's like,
Mhm.
okay, she's got to call mom, and like the girl she calls the police, she files a report, she takes pictures for the insurance, she made duplicates, she like has everything all set up to go before the mom even comes home from work,
Right.
and like it's like, whoa, that's cool, but also kind of scary.
Right. Well, see, and on the other side, I kind of feel like the whole like Peter Pan of the pilot
Oh, dude, yeah,
is actually a little bit to everyone's detriment, including his own. That
yeah.
he has like no regard for his neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really care. And then he's like, "Oops." Like,
I got a bunch of
the
pennies in a giant jar.
yeah. Oh,
That's
I
probably
can't
not
pay
going to
for
cover
that.
the cost of that at all. But thanks to that jar, the little girl finds all these little pieces that make up, you know,
Right.
the little prints and like little figurines that the aviator had made of these characters and things from his story.
Right.
And then,
And
yeah,
I get it. I get the concept that mom and daughter's priorities were out of whack and she needed this crazy guy in her life. Like I get it. Also, it irks me when it's like, "Oh, you should just be happy that the crazy guy destroyed your home and completely disregarded your safety or welfare or like
yeah,
they could barely afford that house. Like they
yes,
purposely like busted it to get into the home in the school district or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
And mom is probably working as hard as she's working and out there knocking her head against the corporate wall
Hmm.
because she has to sustain this life. She has to keep this home to keep her daughter in this elite school,
To give
which
her
she
the
probably has to pay
opportunities that she
tuition for,
needs. Yeah.
you know? And so for him to just be like, "Oh, darn,
Sorry.
sorry, got a bucket of pennies," like
Yeah.
or
Well,
jar
I,
of
I do
pennies.
love that the cop's like, did you start your plan again?
Right.
Like, uh, yes, I did. And like, so he knows he's not supposed to, this, but like his brain, so he's at the point where like, I don't know how like smart he was when he was in his prime of life. I don't know how logical and reasonable he was. I don't know if this whole thing in the desert, you know,
Rattled him.
rattled something loose and like he came up with all these epiphanies, but also lost a little bit of his good sense, or if that's just him getting older and now all he cares about is his story that he might have made up, or it might have actually happened, or it might not
Yeah.
have, or it might just been delusion. But like now he's obsessed with it and that's all he cares about. And he's just like, I gotta show this, I gotta tell somebody the story, and he's got no one to give it to. So then he
Yeah.
like just sort of intrudes himself into the girl's life, like, hey, you want to read my story? And at first she
Yeah.
doesn't care, and she just like, go away, crazy old man that nearly killed me and destroyed my house, until she gets curious and, finds all the little pieces in the jar of quarters. And then
Yep.
she pulls the story out of the trash and starts reading it. And then she gets curious. She's like, this is so illogical. It doesn't make any sense. And she's like, but I need to find out what happens next in the story just so I can answer these questions because now I'm curious and this is going to drive me crazy until I know what the point of this is and what happened. And so she goes over there with like the whole like, okay, your story, it's interesting. Well, what the heck? And she starts asking all the practical questions. And he's like, oh, he has all these interesting answers about why that doesn't matter or why his logic is so skewed and weird that she's like, wait, what? Is there more to the story? And so he gives her more of the story. And then so she starts becoming really interested in the story and invested in him because she
Hmm.
has to know, because it speaks to her curiosity to the point she's like, okay, I need to know. Suddenly, this is more important than anything else going on in her life. Never mind that she totally cared about having great grades and like keeping to the schedule. She suddenly found something else has awakened something new in her.
Right.
Whereas, like, and I think it's interesting how The very first day, he lets her take the fox plushie. And I love how he says, "Oh, he doesn't talk. I mean, give him a mouth, but I never got around to it." So, like, if you had a mouth, that plushie would talk. It's what essentially he's saying.
Right.
And like, I love that. And then there was a whole like he fell over in the kitchen. She's like, "Are you okay?" It's like, "Oh yeah, it happens sometimes. Last time I was here for 3 days. That's why I always keep a bologna sandwich in my pocket. Want some?
Right.
I think it's bologna." And it's like, oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Well, and he calls himself a hoarder. That's so funny. That
No
part was funny
collecting.
to me too.
It's like, no,
Because
hoarding.
she's
It's
like,
called hoarding.
yeah, she's like, collector? And he's like, no.
No.
I know what I am.
I know what it is. I mean, it's cool. Like it's very well organized and pretty looking hordes of stuff.
Yeah.
It looks artistic and neat. And she's like, "Whoa, this is like my first reaction would be like, whoa, this is so cool. You're what an artist you are. You're so creative." Her reaction, "Oh, this is quite the fire hazard." He's like, "Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little things like that that I like he needed her. I think that's kind of the takeaway is
Hmm.
that he needed her.
As much as she
And
needed him.
she does end up needing him, and
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what you take away, like regardless of it kind of reminds me of the whole Rose and Prince situation where the Rose is inconsiderate. The Rose doesn't care if she's throwing a propeller through your wall, right? The Rose
Yeah.
doesn't care if it's inconveniencing you or
She's
it
asking
or
too much. Yeah.
yeah. And that's kind of the old man. That's kind of the
Hmm.
pilot in this scenario. And
But yet at the same
the
time, having the rose there gave him a great appreciation for beauty or something that he'd never had before. It awoken something new in him. Like for
right.
her, having the pilot there and have him introduce her to this probably imaginary world that he created and all these new ideas, it woke up something in her and it
Yeah,
helped her see the world differently and, it opened her imagination.
right.
Yeah.
And then we could probably talk forever about like each individual part because that's what we do. But
We'll try not
I
to.
really so there's the story of the little prince and then there's this like larger story in the film of the girl and meeting him and hearing the little prince's story and then there's all the stuff that happens after. So the guy once he's um sick or injured, I don't remember. Sick.
Well, first the mom finds out that her friend is the
Oh,
old man next
right.
door because he tries to take her for um a drive
Hmm.
to get pancakes for her fake
Right.
birthday. And he doesn't even have a license. Even like when he gets pulled over, the car barely works. He doesn't follow any of the traffic laws. And then when he gets pulled over, he looks to her, it's like, "Do you have a license?"
Right.
And apparently, this is something he's done before. Because again, the cop's like, "Apparently, you've started your car again."
Yeah. Well, I forget what the officer says when he sees him. He's like, "Oh no,
He's
are
like,
you kidding me?"
"Are you kidding me? Again? Really?" And but then that's when the mom finds out that she was going for a ride with the old man next door who doesn't have a license and the car's not registered and blah blah blah. And where were they going? And oh, and apparently it's your birthday, and apparently you have not been keeping to your schedule. You haven't been doing this at all. What have you been doing? And then that's when the whole big blow up comes where like the girl's like, "You care more about the chart than you do me." She's like, "No, I care as much about the chart as I do you." And I'm like, "That was the wrong answer, Mom."
Yeah, that was
There's your
not
problem right
correct.
there. The fact that you don't see that is part of what you need to learn from a situation is that you didn't ask the girl what mattered to her. You didn't sit down with her and make this plan. You made a plan for her.
Yep.
And she was fine with that because that's what it's been all this time. But now that she's been opened up to the idea of having individual thought, creative and unique ideas, that you can be your own separate person, that she can have something outside of her mom, that she can be somebody else, she
Hmm.
needs you to acknowledge that this is not her. That, it might be what works for you. This isn't me.
Right.
And
Well, they kind of introduced that in the very beginning when the girl I forget what her like three things were, but she's like, number one, I'm super dedicated, just whatever. Number two,
mhm.
and she starts like she's
And she has a
like her
memorized theme.
yeah, her mom has drilled it into her
Hmm.
and she's a good little reciter. She's a good little
Yeah.
actress or
Yeah.
whatever. And so when she gets up there, she's not even listening to them
The
because
actual question.
she's just parroting back what mom said. Like she didn't
Mm-hmm.
have any independent thought. If she had had independent thought, then she would have heard the question and been like, "Oh, okay,
Well, I want to do this. Or like she probably wouldn't have said essential, but she would have been like, I want to do this. And I think this will help the world in this way, which
right,
would have been much better. But because she's so focused on doing exactly what mom has taught her to do, she's not able to like spin it and even
right,
realize what's happening.
yeah."
So
So yeah, and that's kind of how, and it kind of the like over possessive, like you are not an individual, you are a product of what I
yeah. And it's
deem to
also
be
an overprotectiveness because she's trying to protect her from her own mistakes almost. Like
right,
you want to be like, well, if I do this with you, you won't make the same mistakes I did and you'll be better off.
right. But it breeds distrust. The daughter
Hmm.
can't really trust mom. Look what happened when I trusted mom. Look what she's like. I see that there's more to life now than what she's forcing me to look at. So,
And she rips up the story and she throws away the plushie
right.
and she's
And
just like,
so
no.
yeah, so of course the daughter is going to be lying and sneaking around,
She's like, I'm gonna
and
go with you. We're gonna go see the Little Prince.
she's not doing it to be rebellious necessarily. She's not like, "No, mom, I'm gonna do whatever you say not to." But she's going to be her own person and she has her own things that she values now. And so she's going to,
Yeah.
kind of and I feel like we all kind of do that to a point. Like I said, I got 4 kids and I do have one
Hmm.
who will remain nameless because I don't want to necessarily put her on blast, but it feels like she will do something that I tell her not to, specifically because I tell her not to.
Oh, I have one of those.
And
Maybe two.
I'm like, what have I done in your past that leads you to think that you need to do that?
I'm like, they're just trying to see if, what your response will be
Right, right.
or how far
Well,
they can push you.
or just kind of that concept of like I'm not going to be what you want, like I will be my own person and if and you
And
need to accept
that's
that. And
fine within reason.
sometimes right, well, and sometimes afterwards like she like you can see that like there comes a point that she's like I went full tilt in the direction you told me not to go and that sucked, you know.
Hmm.
And I don't do the whole like, see, I told you because that's not helpful.
Yeah,
But
not really.
but then the next time that something comes around, I'm like, I promise if you will give me a little bit of trust, I will give you that same trust. And if I see that what I'm thinking should work isn't working, I can
I'll
back
admit it
off. Like you can trust me to let go if it's not working, but also going against me
just for the sake of
hasn't
it.
ever
Just stupid.
panned out for you.
Yeah.
you know and I feel like this mom is kind of doing that backwards
Hmm.
where she's like my daughter doesn't need independent thought, I will do the thinking for her, and
Yeah.
then on the other side of it like she's supposed to just flip a switch and be like capable now.
Hmm.
That's not the way that's gonna
How's that
work.
gonna
and
work? Yeah.
so
So
and
then
so
like,
there's a distrust there, and so she goes on this crazy adventure that the rest of us are would
well,
be
she
like, oh,
tries
that
to
was my
go with the pilot to go find the prince. And at this point, she totally believes that this is
right,
the actual thing. And like, he's like, well, you can't actually go with me. I mean, you like at this point, he realizing he's close to death. And that was part of the point of giving her the story was he wanted to pass this on to somebody else. This was
right.
something he wanted to do. And he felt like, hey, that's the time you came along just in time. She's like, just in time for what? She's like, well, I'm not gonna be here forever. And she's like, wait, what? It's like eventually I'm gonna die, and then in the story, the little prince um either gets bitten by the snake and dies, or his spirit travels back
Right.
to his planet because his body's too heavy and he is too far away, and apparently he can't find any more birds. I don't know, but like whether he actually dies in the story or actually died in reality, whatever, like. He's saying, eventually I'm gonna go find the little prince. So she's like, well, I'll go with you. And he's like, okay, I don't think you understand. I literally can't take you with me. This plane
Hmm.
actually doesn't work. And where I'm going, you can't go because it's not your time.
Right.
And I just wanted to share it with you so that someone would know what I had experienced or somebody would understand my thoughts and I could share this important thing, the thing that was important to me, something I learned with somebody else. And, and then she gets all upset and then confused, like why he won't take her with him. And then he gets sick and gets sent to the hospital. And then she's so mad and upset because she wasn't talking to him at the time because she was mad at him for not taking her or whatever. And then, or I think this is when he told her about the little prince dying or getting bit by the spider,
Right.
whatever it is.
By the snake.
Oh, that's right. That's a spider. I know it's a snake. It starts with an S and it bites. Anyways,
Right.
so yeah, she tries to go with him, and then he's like, "You should hear the rest of the story." And then he reads her the rest of the story, and she's like, "What was the point of reading this to me if like he died or like what the heck?" And then she's so
Gone.
mad. But then the next thing you know, he gets sick and he's in the hospital, and then she's like, so in such a panic, she's like, "Oh no, he can't go. I have to tell him that I'm sorry." And then she like decides to she's gonna take the plane and she's gonna go find the little prince so he can come and fix the old man because only he can fix him. And so then we go into this interesting thing, which you then now to decide whether she is having one possibility is that when she fell off the rain
The rain gutter thing.
whatever, she hit her head and, passed out and had this whole dream
Right.
journey. Or she actually decided just to imagine what it would be like. And she sat in the plane and imagined she went and did all these things.
Yep.
And either way, it doesn't really
Or it's
matter.
all real. Yeah.
Or it's all real. And somehow she actually was able to fly that broken plane into
Into
this.
this other dimension. Like it
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of again, the Miracle on 34th Street when he's like, the North Pole, my North Pole is in the dream realm or whatever. He's like, I thought everybody
Yeah.
understood
It,
that.
it
And
exists
that's
here.
something that a kid kind of goes, oh yeah, got it, you
That makes
know?
sense. Yeah.
And so maybe she finally had the faith and she
It's like I can go there. I can find him.
went to there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
But
she goes and finds him, right? So
right. And I like that I like the concept that like she did go to this world now that does have all of these people together.
but they don't know who they are and they none of them seem to remember who they were and they're all people from his story but they're all trapped in this world where there's no children. They're like, oh, that is most definitely not allowed. You can't be a child. Why are
Right.
you so small? I'm a child.
Right. Well, because all of the children are put into these factories where they're essentially factories. It's a school, but
Mhm. Yeah,
they become a cog in the network and they a cog in the machine. I don't know.
yeah, and they don't come out until they're adults and so then these people never see children.
Right. I also like that the fox becomes more animate over time.
Yeah.
Like, so he's just a toy, and then when she sees him, she's like, "Well, what are you doing there?" And that's when the guy's like, "Ah, he doesn't talk, I don't have a mouth for him."
Hmm.
And he is just a stuffed animal, but then there'll be things like something happens and he suddenly like puts his head down, like almost like intentional, but maybe
Yeah.
it's just the toy fell. But
Yeah.
over time, things seem like he
Like
seems
he's
almost more responsive.
might
He's the
moving.
Velveteen Rabbit, right? He's coming to life as she believes. And
Hmm.
so by the time they're in the plane, like he's just like a fully like
He's all
animate person,
yeah, like and he's totally involved without getting stopped because
Yeah.
of course he doesn't have a mouth. So he doesn't talk.
And
But
and that she can see the little prince even though he is now grown up, but
he's a grown-up man.
she sees the person within, right? She's
Hmm.
not looking with her eyes. She's looking with her heart or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she sees him and she knows he's there. And he has forgotten those
Uh-huh.
lessons that he learned with the fox and whatever, he has forgotten. And so
Hmm.
she kind of, if this is all her own self-discovery, we talked about the pilot having his own self-discovery hallucination type
Hmm.
thing with the little prince. Her own is that the world where they're all together. She's aware of these different characters now. She sees them all together and trying to strip away childhood, just like her mother, with the best of intentions, was stripping away her childhood
Hmm.
and denying her that. And even the prince has forgotten himself in the same way that even she had let go of her own childhood, even though she's still in the process of being a little girl, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of like that in the same way that the Little Prince story that we read, the book, was the pilot's discovery of truths already known but not understood. This was kind of hers.
Uh-huh.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
She goes on her own journey and then she finds him and she helps him to save him. And I love all the random things about like they're like taking all this stuff and putting it in a grinder and it comes out as paper clips. I was like, that's
Right.
hilarious.
Yep.
And the tipping man, like everybody starts clapping for him and so he gets distracted and he's supposed to be the cop, but he can't
Right.
stop her because he can't stop, and then the stars are all stuck in like a snow globe. But like that's
Right.
that's supposed to also sort of reference it when she vacuumed all the stars off of her ceiling, they were
Hmm.
stuck in the vacuum, in the clear
Right.
part of the vacuum. So then she's like, I gotta release the stars, and they gotta break it and let the stars all go because the businessman trapped all the stars to keep people from being dreamers, to keep them,
Right.
focused and logical.
And not because he thought it was for their own good, but because it was for his.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's
He made them useful. He turned the stars into power for the city or
right.
to like spruce people up.
Well, and to
So,
keep them going, to keep them
mhm.
working for him essentially.
Yeah, he gives them
Um,
just enough to like keep them going, but not enough to have their own hopes and dreams and their own goals.
right. Right.
Which isn't in its own way, it's kind of like that's kind of what some people end up doing when
Yeah.
they become an adult. They just give themselves just enough to keep going, but they deny themselves that they need more. That you
Right.
can't just be your job, you can't just be your family, you can't just be your own talents, you can't just be you. You'll have to care about other things besides just the one thing. There
Right.
has to be a balance, and there's important things all around you that you need to acknowledge and take advantage of, or you're living in your own little world and you're going to be limited to that tiny little planet that you've created.
Right.
And so, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and she saves the little prince from
Yep.
himself, takes him to his planet, which of course has become completely overgrown with the baobabs.
Yeah.
And they're like, we got to go and save, the rose. And they get there. And like, he's been gone for so long, the rose died. And
Yeah.
like, at first, it's like, oh no, this isn't how it's supposed to happen. The rose isn't supposed to be dead. You're supposed to be together. You're supposed to be, she was supposed to be, you're supposed to be up there with your rose laughing and everything. And then, like, the little prince, now the little prince again, is like, no, it's, the fact that she's gone doesn't change the fact of what we had. She's still here with me, So, like, his realization about the rose and her importance to him and how she's still with him, even if she's not there, it's
Hmm.
sort of her realizing that even if the old man, the aviator, is gone, he will still have been a part of her life. He will still be a part of her. He's not gone if she can't see him,
Yeah.
and that was her needing to cope with what was about to happen. Because, yeah, he doesn't die in the movie, but eventually he will die.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, I like that. So the fox had said like that was essentially like part of his secret that was the gift that he made, right? It
Hmm.
was that like he's like of course you have to go and I'm sad, but I'm gonna see the what was it? The corn or something. I'm gonna see the hay, whatever it was, like
It'll
the
remind me of your hair.
golden. Yeah, remind me of your golden hair, and I forget what it was, but you'll see something or you'll hear something and it'll remind you of me.
And
And
make you kind of happy. Yeah.
yeah, and he says the same thing to the aviator when he's like he like the aviator keeps saying, I just want to hear you laugh one more time. I just need to know that you're still laughing and happy. I wanna save you and hear your laughter for the rest of my life. And he says, I live in the stars. I live in that star. And so when you look up at the stars, you can hear my laughter,
Just
and
imagine they're all laughing. Yeah.
the rose had said when she first bloomed, she had said, "Oh, I've just woken up. I was born with the sun." And so then when the girl is standing there with the the little prince and the dead rose, he looks up and he sees the sunrise and he sees the rose in the sunrise because that reminds him of her. Like that was his connection with her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a lovely, like, now she has this story of the little prince and this fox that can always remind her of him. And you know
And
what
then
I mean? Like,
he puts his book together, his story together into a book, like a nice little
right.
book for him. And, gets the mom to go with her to, we'll visit, first day of school, but, we can go visit David on the way to school. And
Hmm.
so the mom's kind of like feeling really bad that something happened to him. So she's like, oh, okay, we'll go. And then, they go in there and she shows him the book. And then he's like, the mom suddenly like gets drawn into the situation where he starts reading it to her. And so now it's like this whole situation has sort of made it possible for the mom to go, okay, I need to reevaluate everything
Yeah.
happening here because, yeah, I thought I was doing the right thing. But now this person was so important to her, she was willing to run away from me
Right.
just to go find him. And he means so much to her that she's gone through all this effort. And I need to learn about this. I need to understand what they developed and why he was important to her.
Yeah.
I need to know more about her now.
Yeah. Well, and also the thing that the girl does for him is to honor what he cherished. You know what I mean?
Like,
The concept that like he wasn't or she wasn't just doing what made her feel good. Oh, I brought you flowers or whatever because it makes me feel good to give you something. I love giving gifts.
mm-hmm,
I don't know that I'm an especially great gift giver
mm-hmm.
because I want to give you something, but I don't actually know what you like or
Yeah,
whatever, you know?
yeah.
And so I always tell myself, I'm like, I'm going to pay closer attention so that the next time that I go to give someone something, I'm going to be like, I know they like this thing, you know?
Mhm.
But for me, I have to work at it. And this girl, she knew him well enough to know that of all of the things in all of this world, you can't take any of it with you, but he does cherish this. Like we said, this was his legacy. This was
Mm-hmm.
what he had to give to the world, and she honored it. You know?
She put it all together and like showed him, she kind of cemented it, said, hey, this will live on.
Yeah.
It's a book now. It's not just a story written on loose papers. It's now its own thing and it has its own life and you will be remembered.
Yep.
And yeah, so my husband watched it with me, and he didn't read the book, but he watched it with me, and he's like, "Oh, that was really cute. Thanks for letting me watch that with you." And it was our second time watching it, so the kids were like, "Oh yeah, this." They really liked it, and they watched it a bunch after we watched it the first time. But there were a lot of little things that I forgot, but it was really fun to watch again after reading the book and appreciating all the stuff that the movie added to
Hmm.
enhance the story of the original book. And there's a lot of movies and like books that we've read where like they have to add stuff to sort of fill it out, whatever. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And this works. This works
Yeah, this
really
works.
well.
Hmm.
Like it seems like a weird, quirky movie and a weird, quirky story, and then you start realizing, oh no, this is all on purpose. This isn't
Yeah.
just some random girl living next to this random guy. This is so much more. And what they added to the story is just as awesome in my mind as the original story.
Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful example of when like an adaptation can like really honor yet elevate the material.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen often.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I love the truths that are in this simple story
Mm-hmm.
of the Little Prince. And it's easy for some to say like, okay, yeah, that's great, but that didn't really pertain to me. I don't necessarily have an issue with, you know, I'm not a businessman. I'm not a drunk. I don't, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get it. I've got my family and I love my family and I make time for, the things that are of real value, like I'm good.
Yeah.
But here's a situation that on the outside looked totally different. this mom and her daughter, and she's doing what she can to get her into the school. And like this doesn't like
Doesn't
clearly,
seem like a bad thing until you get
yeah,
further into it.
clearly mom cares about daughter, Clearly daughter is not initially unhappy, all things considered. She hasn't really considered anything yet, but
Yeah,
and so you kind of look at that and you go, oh, well, so you can see how both of them would be like, great, but this doesn't really pertain to, I don't need
I'm
this.
fine.
You know,
I don't need
we
friends.
have
I
a
don't need
we
this
have a
story.
bond, right? Yeah, like
Yeah,
this isn't necessary for me. But in fact it is. Maybe that's not your exact situation, but here's how it can work in your life. And
yeah,
and it kind of makes you go, where am I? Like, what am I missing out
yeah.
of life? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So I loved that everything that was added into the movie, or everything the movie added,
Uh-huh.
was an ad. Like it was a benefit to the message. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
It didn't take away from the original story and it honored it. And
Right.
it's a great movie. And everybody should go
Yeah.
watch it.
Yep.
You can read it too.
Oh my gosh. My very favorite part is when they're up on the roof. This is totally random, but they're up on the roof and she has like whatever, so that his broom like fell over the edge, and he's got like the work gloves, and he's like, oh, and he goes like this, and his gloves fall off, and then he has this moment of like, what the, even my gloves, like he's, I don't even think he says anything. I think he just says, what the, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, one of
but
my favorite parts is when like she has to go up in the tree to get the kite or whatever. And she's like,
Mhm.
oh, this is scary. He's like, I know it's scary. What do you think I sent you?
Yeah, those little things that are like I don't know if anybody else cared. Obviously, somebody put that little line in.
Uh-huh.
Somebody made that little extra animation where the gloves fall, and then he's like,
They added the extra little bit, and
you
that
know,
just gives it an
like
extra amount of like character and more personality.
right. And because it's animated and scripted, like all of those things were intentional. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And just kind of those extra little things that kind of make you like remember, like, did you catch it? Like
Yeah.
all the little bits, but anyway, they're it's those aren't integral to the story, but they are just those sweet little things that like make it more impactful. So,
Yeah. I
you
think
know,
those little things are the nice little touches that really elevate a movie from being, a good movie and being a great movie. And
yeah.
those extra things are just so fun, and especially when you notice more of them every time. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right, so that's The
All right.
Little Prince. One thing I wanted to
Everyone
add
watch it.
before that's one of the things. So one thing I want to add before we move on. So ironically, when I chose this, I didn't realize that. So I'm going to the opera as part of my anniversary weekend, and the opera is The Little Prince that we're going to be going
Oh,
to this weekend. So, oh, okay. I must see an opera version of it too. And Johnny's like, oh, now that I've seen the movie, that's kind of fun. It will be like, interesting to see what it's like as an opera.
yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So, anyways, it's my first time going to the opera too. So this will be very interesting.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. So that's The Little Prince. What are we doing next time?
So this one, okay. So my kids and I, and kind of Scott, have been watching all of Stranger Things
Mm-hmm.
because apparently I'm a bad mom.
You're bad. Okay. So really, right now, ironically, I'm watching it with my 3-year-old son. So you're a bad mom, but I'm a bad mom too. Your youngest is
Well,
12.
I
So
mean, I've
you're,
got like a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old, and they're like, "Ugh." but it's fine. But we love it, and it's fine. And it is like right up my alley. It's macabre and weird, and also dorky and cute and
and
80s, and
and like
like it's,
vintage, retro. Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's Winona Ryder, and it's so anyway.
Yeah, a lot of great
Um,
things going on.
so they have a scene where Dustin and Susie's, I don't know if people don't know this show. This doesn't have
Yeah.
anything to do with like the Stranger Things thing, but in the show, like Susie is like they're on a radio trying to
Mm-hmm.
correspond. She's like, I want to hear it, do it. And so she gets Dustin to sing the never ending story. And the
Oh.
girls are like, what is it? Because we have that song in our car. And
Mm-hmm.
so it plays all the time. They're like, what is that? You guys always sing to it and whatever. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so right then I looked up just to make sure, and it is a book. It was a book that they made a movie about. So
Wow.
I don't know how I
I,
didn't know that
I didn't
before,
realize
but
that.
we have to do it. We have to do Never Ending Story.
Yeah, okay. I watched this with my kids when we first moved to New York, so quite some time ago. So I think they've forgotten it altogether. And I did not know it was a book. So there you go. That's the
Yep.
fun thing about doing this podcast. I'm learning all sorts of new things about the books and movies out there. Okay,
Yep.
so next time we're gonna be doing Neverending Story, the book, and the film. And yeah, that's what we're gonna do next time. And that's Ray's book, and then it will be the last episode of the season, and we'll take a little break and come back for season 4.
The Never Ending Story, but it will be the end of this season.
Yes, of season 3 for us. Anyways, well, thanks everybody for stopping by and listening to us ramble. I'm Ruth Craddock,
I'm Ray Davidson.
and we will see you guys next time for the Never Ending Story.